You're listening to When God Intervenes, the podcast where faith, hope, and healing come together for families with a loved one battling addiction. Start over. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of When God Intervenes. I'm your host, Darryl Rodgers. I'm here today with Gloria Vanderhorst. Gloria is in the DC area. She is a psychologist with 50 years of experience, 50 years in private practice. She has authored a book that is it's a journal, or it's a book and a journal, right? So you can
Correct.
write or scribble in the blank pages. She has specialized in working with boys from a very young age up to adult men, really good with males and emotional problems that males have. And I know, Gloria, my audience is primarily women. It seems to be the women that reach out to me first when they have a child who's battling drug or alcohol addiction. But there are also dads in our audience, and I've worked with dads, and we're a little bit different in the way we approach things, you know. And I think there's definitely a lot that men need to hear and that wives need to hear regarding these things about emotions, how we deal with our emotions as men and how we don't deal with our emotions as men, and how that ties into dealing with a child who is battling addiction. So with that, is there anything else you would like to say just to get things rolling before I kind of get into some of the questions?
I would first just like to offer my empathy for any parent who is coping with a child with an addiction. I wish that were not happening for anyone. And I have had friends and clients with that experience, and it is true heartbreak. So I just offer my love and empathy for everyone who's listening, because you're here, because you're wrestling with this.
Yeah.
And it's so important to do that wrestling. So
Absolutely.
keep wrestling.
Yeah. You know, I've said often that I know what it's like to grieve the loss of a child, because I lost my child, my oldest son, due to drug use. It was an impaired driving wreck. But also, I know what the grief is like that parents feel when they have a child in active addiction. It's a different type of grief, but it's certainly it's grief, and it's very intense. I appreciate you recognizing that and pointing that out. That is a very difficult road for
It
parents
is
to go
a
through.
really hard road.
You know, we were talking off camera just a little earlier about a little bit about my story and how it ties in with the work that you do, in that you have worked with boys a lot, adolescents, and the struggles that boys tend to have with emotions.
Yeah.
And why don't we talk about that a little bit, and maybe how it ties into addiction? I think I mentioned to you that our oldest son was diagnosed ADD. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit as well.
I would like to start with letting everyone know that there is a very unusual fact about boys that really has not been popularized, but needs to be. And that fact is that infant boys are born with a broader range of emotional expression than girls. It's shocking, right? If you think about just evolution in general, right? The fact that infant boys come into the world with a broader range of emotional experiences and emotional feelings, which means they can get sillier, higher, happier, more excited. They can get lower, right? They can get depressed, irritated, intense in a negative direction. That's unusual. And the other thing that I want everyone to recognize is that that has been the truth for males forever. And if you look at the way that generations tend to adapt to different things, you'll realize that holding on to this full range of emotion is unusual. Let's just start with a caveman, right? He has to be brave and not have any of these negative feelings of fear or anxiety hold him in the cave. He has to go out and he has to kill and he has to hunt. So he has to use all of his strength to do that. Well, you would think after a while that he doesn't need that lower range of emotional expression, and that through generations and hundreds of years, it would have fallen out, but it hasn't. And so it's critical that we all understand that boys do come in to this world with a broader range of emotional expression. And then we as mothers, because mothers provide most of the interaction for infants, we unconsciously change that for boys. We don't do it intentionally. We don't even know we're doing it. But when an infant boy gets kind of more irritated, more agitated, more intense on either the silliness range or the irritation range, we change our reaction to them, right? Maybe it's just a facial expression. Maybe we back up a little bit. Maybe we look away, right? And infants are brilliant. Emotion is their survival tool. They read the emotion in the world around them perfectly. That's their survival tool. So when mother kind of turns away, backs up, doesn't like that intensity, the infant boy learns immediately, I don't want to do that anymore. I'll cut that out. And then, all right, when they become toddlers and they start walking around, we train them not to go into the softer ranges of feeling states. I share this example all the time. Go to a playground, go to a mall, watch a little girl get in trouble or get hurt in some way. She runs up to her parent. She gets picked up and she gets asked what happened. Watch a little boy, same thing. He's crying, he's running to mom or dad. He gets asked what happened. If he gives a good enough response, he will get picked up and receive comfort. But if he doesn't give a good enough response, he'll just be sent back. All right, just go on back and play. So we train our boys before they go to school to eliminate access to the full range of their feeling states, particularly the ones on the negative end of the continuum. All right, the sadness, the disappointment, the grief. We don't want them feeling those. We don't want our boys crying, right? Somehow we know someday we're going to put a gun and send them out into a field to fight for our country. And so we don't want them feeling those softer feelings. And that is what leads us into the biggest trouble, because these guys grow up and then they don't have access to the full range of feeling states. So, what are they going to do? Right? It's like, all right, Darryl, what did your son do? He doesn't have access to the full range of emotions. He has attention deficit. So when he gets frustrated, when he gets disappointed about his performance, what emotion did he tap into?
Yeah. Probably gets really frustrated, right? And
Right.
yeah, anger.
Right. He can't tap in to sadness. He taps into frustration, which is a form of irritation, anger, acting out. I'm going to act out, right? I can either act out towards someone else or towards myself. And the addiction is acting out towards myself. It's just taking myself down and being frustrated with myself. And so that's the path that we set our boys and men on. And I'm an advocate for changing that.
Yeah. There's so many different ideas I'm coming up with here on things, directions to go with this. But in my line of work, working with parents, what I've found is that when you have a child who's battling addiction, now we're already at that point where
Right.
we're either a teenager or a young adult and they're battling drug or alcohol addiction. The main issue that I see with parents is that they're unable to set and maintain healthy boundaries. They engage in enabling behaviors. And so they're doing things for an adult, quite often a young adult, but sometimes even an older adult
Mm-hmm.
child that they could be and should be doing for themselves. And so the emotions that tend to drive them are fear. If I don't do this, what is going to happen? Shame and guilt. Those
Right.
are the three big emotions that I see.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I do is I've had to learn how to regulate my own emotions over the years because I learned they weren't always serving me well because of the way I was expressing them. I find that's a big issue for parents is setting and maintaining those healthy boundaries, and it's because they're not able to regulate their emotions. The fear takes over, or the
Mm-hmm.
shame, or the guilt, and the whole family gets stuck
It
in
does.
this place where the adult child is unable to move forward and the family is unable to move forward. What do you have to say about that? What we're talking about, particularly with boys and men, how does that play into all of
Yeah,
that?
you're really talking about fear, right?
Mm-hmm,
Everyone is stuck in fear.
mm-hmm,
I think in pictures, right? So the image that comes to mind for fear is that it's quicksand, right? Fear will always take you down. It will always bury you and consume you, and stay in that place of I'm so afraid. You will enable your son, right? I'm so afraid that, fill in the blank, that he's going to go call friend so and so who got him into trouble the last time, right? So what do I do, right? Maybe I take away his phone. Okay, well, now you've just disconnected him
mm-hmm,
from every social connection that he's ever had because our kids live in our phones, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
All of us tend to live in our phones lately. And so it's coming to grips with what feelings can I access for this child that will help my son to be able to find some sense of value in himself. And I
mm-hmm.
have to get out of fear. Fear is definitely quicksand,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
Let's get out of fear and into empathy. This guy is in trouble. He's struggling, right? He's
Mm,
frustrated. He is unhappy. He's disappointed at himself. He feels like there is no future, there is no path forward for him. Now, I have to believe that every human being has tasted some of that at some point in your life,
mm-hmm,
right? Everyone, maybe not to the depth that your son is experiencing it right now, but you can have empathy
mm,
for
yeah.
that feeling state and for that sense of, it's hopeless and I'm frozen. Use empathy. Get rid of fear. Stop being afraid, right? Your son needs you to come alongside and to empathize. And it's quite all right to say, look, I have never been in the place you've been. I do not understand it. It's like deeper than any place that I have ever been taken. But I have been in this place, right? I've been
Mm-hmm,
someplace where I'm afraid. I've been someplace where I really feel less than everybody else in the room, right? So if you can tap into empathy, you've just made a healthy connection with that child. And it's like a silk thread. You want to keep making those healthy connections. Every one of your sons also has strengths as well as weaknesses, right? And I want to make a connection with those strengths, even if they are, haven't been accessed for years.
mm-hmm,
I still want to make a connection with that strength. I might have to go pretty far back into history to find the camping experience
mm-hmm,
when he helped dig a trench around the tent when it was raining like crazy and kept everybody else dry, right? That's a sense of responsibility there, right? It's a sense of competence. It's a sense of connection to the family. And what am I doing, right? I'm just a little kid helping dad dig a trench
Right.
around the tent. Your sons need to be reminded that they have these character qualities and that they haven't lost them. They haven't disappeared.
I've noticed about men, like as we've talked earlier, that we tend to suppress our feelings. We tend to
You do.
suppress our emotions. We hold those in. So men do really well communicating with each other when they're engaged in some type of activity together, and they're not necessarily having to make eye contact. Fishing or golfing or something along those
Mhm.
lines.
Right.
The barriers, the walls seem to come down, and
Mhm.
we communicate better that way. Can you speak to that? Why is that?
Yeah, I tell parents, even with younger kids, I say, if you, particularly with your teenager, if you want to have a conversation with your teenager, go for a drive. Everybody's facing forward. You don't have to make eye contact. And kids will talk more in that situation when they don't have to make eye contact. But they're also in a safe container. Think of
Right.
your car as a safe container. And it's much easier to engage in conversation when you're not doing the direct eye contact.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we tend to want to make eye contact when we're in conversations with people because we feel like they're not making eye contact with me, then
Something's wrong.
there's some shame there, or there's something they're trying to avoid. So there's a lack of trust there. But there are definitely situations like this where it's easier for people to talk about the things that they need to talk about when
When
they.
they don't have to make eye contact. It's
Mhm.
also true because we have eliminated the full range of feeling experiences for all of you guys. It's also true that it's hard for a father to generate a conversation that goes into feeling states. Right? So think
Mhm.
about it. You don't have access to those feeling states. Your son doesn't have access to your feeling states. And so, what I have done multiple times is to send a list of feelings out to parents, right? I have this list, it's 3 pages long, 3 columns on each page, all feeling words. And the brilliant thing about our brains, particularly for men, is that they can recognize the feeling that I'm experiencing, but they can't produce it. So if you have a set of feeling words and pass that to your son and say, just run through this, all right? Indulge me. Just run through this and see what feeling, how are you feeling right now? Or how are you feeling about this particular situation that happened, 2 days ago? Scan through the feelings. Trust me, your brain will recognize the feelings that you're experiencing. They just leap off the page. So your brain never loses access to emotional intelligence. The society just trains you that you're not supposed to use that access, but
Mhm.
it is still there. But you need tools to access it, right? You can't
Mhm.
generate those words on your own, but you can immediately recognize. And guys just pop them out. Oh, I'm feeling, and they pick up 2 or 3 things off that page. And then they can talk about it, right? Oh, I'm feeling humiliated. All right, well, tell me more about that. What happened? Why were you humiliated? What was going on? Who was there? Right? Then you can be encouraged to share it. And that's really the key to recovery, is to be able to access my feelings, tell those stories, and be accepted, right?
Right.
Be received, be safe in telling those stories.
As a man, I think most men would agree with me on this. I have a defense mechanism that sort of comes up that I don't want to admit that I'm scared of anything or that anything scares me or I'm afraid of anything. I know that's not true, but if
Mhm,
someone were to say to me, "Oh, you're behaving that way because you're scared,"
mhm.
I would have an immediate
You'll
visceral
deny it,
reaction to
right?
that. Like, no, I'm not either.
You've been trained as a toddler not to have those feeling states,
Hmm.
right? Anything on the negative end of the continuum, anything
Hmm.
below neutral on the feeling chart, you have been trained. Men don't feel weakness, sadness, anything on the negative end of the continuum for feelings. Those are not real for you. And
Right.
so you have to awaken that part of you, and it happens immediately. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that I have handed a man a feeling sheet and just said, okay, you can't figure out what you're feeling, scan down there, it will pop out. And man, boom, boom, then you can talk about it. But you
Hmm.
need some kind of an external cue in order to know, yes, that's exactly what I'm feeling. Now I can tell you the story that goes along with that. The goal with your sons, they're all having life experiences that hurt, that put them in the negative end of the feeling continuum.
Hmm.
They need to be able to tell those stories, right? So sometimes those will pop out immediately. Sometimes they'll just acknowledge the word. You'll really appreciate that. And if the
Hmm.
story doesn't come at that point, you have to trust that the story will come later.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, one of the big things with parents, because I know I struggled with it, and so I work with parents who I coach on this as well. Is really communication with their child, effective communication with their child in addiction, and I've noticed it in myself that at times I tend to begin to lose control of my emotions. And if it's something where it's somewhat confrontational and the communication just goes downhill when that happens, right? Are there any tips that you can share with my audience out there on how do you maintain control? I mean, how do you harness your emotions in a way that you can be a positive influence though that you don't lose control of the conversation so that you're able to remain calm and communicate effectively, especially when you get into those types of confrontational type communication.
Yeah, so confrontation triggers intense heat. It happens automatically. And so first you have to be able just to realize that intense heat is going to come up when you're a male engaged in confrontation. And taking responsibility for that is really important, right? Just being able to recognize, acknowledge, I'm hot, I'm angry, I'm intense. I need to take a breath. I need to just calm myself because I don't want to light a fire.
Mm,
It'll burn both of us if I light a fire. I don't want to light a fire, but right now, all I'm doing is holding a bunch of matches. So give me a break, give me space. And maybe that means that I just walk away, all right, and say, can we take this up an hour from now? Right? Maybe it means I'm able to breathe and calm myself down so that we can restart. And then I need to apologize for the heat. I know that heat is not what my son needs.
right.
I know you don't need heat, right? I know you're putting heat on yourself. I
Mm,
know you're kind of internally frying yourself anyway. So I know you don't need heat. All right. So I'm going to release my heat so that we can start in a place of connection, a place where I can genuinely tell you that I'm interested and
mhm.
I'm not running away, right? I'm not going to go anyplace. I'm interested in learning what it's like to be you. right now because it sure doesn't look very pleasant.
Yeah, I think that for me at least, it helps to realize that everyone is going through something. And a lot of times that contributes to their behavior. So I can have some empathy. I can have more empathy when I realize that they're not just behaving badly for no reason. There's
Yep.
something going on underneath that's driving that. I'm thinking particularly about one young man right now that I intervened on. He's in treatment. He's doing really well. He's been there for a little while now, and I'm really proud of him that he's doing so well. But he's been through a lot of very serious trauma and just a lot of anger. And I see this not just with him. He's one of those cases that really stands out to me with a lot of people who are battling addiction, not just males, females too, but
Right.
especially with the males, they tend to put all this blame on their mother. It's like their mother becomes the verbal punching bag. And I think it's because we all tend to believe, well, my mom will be there. She can take it. She'll
Mhm.
love me no matter what. And I've got all this frustration. And so they tend to vent on mom. Anything you'd like to say about that?
Well, as I said here in the beginning,
Uh-huh.
there is a legitimate reason to hold mom accountable,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Because unbeknownst to mom, as an infant, she really did cut off your access to the full range of feeling. I think the key is realizing mother didn't do that intentionally, right? Mother did that because she is different from you and her emotional makeup is different. And, God gave her this range of feelings. He gave you this range of feelings. There's an obvious mismatch. And so, yes, you can hold mom responsible, accountable, say it in any way you want, but you still need to be able to engage in order to repair what's happened to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even this infant experience needs repair. So I know that one needs repair. I am sure there are others that also need repair, and we can manage them, but let's manage them one step at a time,
Mm-hmm.
not a whole boatload of them.
Right.
You couldn't manage a boatload. She can't manage a boatload. Let's sort through them. All right. And hopefully I can support mom enough to really be able to look at there are legitimate complaints and legitimate issues and places where mom has not been the best guide for her son
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
needs to take responsibility for that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that you don't hear that often. So I'm glad you're putting that out there
Yeah,
for people
right.
to digest, to think about. I know it is a very common thing for young men to have a lot of resentment towards their mother. Young men who are in treatment or who are, early in the stages of treatment or they're battling and they're in the midst of addiction. But anyway, that's really insightful. I appreciate you sharing that with us,
Yeah,
Gloria.
if you really honestly think and understand, our brains hold on to everything. They're a huge storage locker. So they really do have that memory as an infant of expressing a feeling state that was discouraged. So I, as a male, can legitimately hold mother responsible for cutting off my access to feelings. Then I can hold the culture responsible when I start to walk for cutting off my access to feelings. And the good news is all of those feelings are still there in your
Mm,
head, and you have to access them in order to participate in the healing of
mm.
this distress that has attacked you and put you in the place that you want to do harm to yourself in what you put into your body.
Right. And I would say, I think you'll agree with me on this. And no matter what trauma you've experienced in the past, no matter what harms have been done to you, those things are not your fault, but it's your responsibility to come up with,
You have
you
to
have to
do the
do the work.
healing. You have
That's
to
right.
do the healing, and that can be very painful
Yeah,
to do that healing.
absolutely.
But it's also possible to do that
Mm,
healing. And as I said, your brain holds on to everything. So you really can kind of reorganize that
hmm
storage locker to really access your strengths and your capability and be really productive. It's possible. It's all still up there. You haven't lost a thing.
Right. Well, Gloria, I've enjoyed having you on. It's been really insightful and a really good conversation. I've really enjoyed it. So, why don't we take just a moment and you tell people about where they can find your book? And I know you have a blog, right?
That's right. So you can find the book on Amazon. It's called Read, Reflect, Respond, The 3 R's of Growth and Change. I'll actually show you the cover of it. It's a very nice cover.
Wow. Yeah. Really nice.
And you can contact me through my website. My website is www.drvanderhorst.com. That's www.drvanderhorst.com. You'll also find lots of resources there, descriptions of different treatment approaches. All the blogs are there, as well as some other very interesting pieces of information. So
Very
I
good.
welcome your contact.
I'll make sure the links are all in there where people can be able to link to you and find your website and your book and everything. So,
I wish you great success in your work. Your work is incredibly valuable. So I hope you just have success after success.
well, thank you so much. It's been healing for me, and I continue to grow through the work.
Mhm.
And everything we talked about today in terms of emotions and being able to express myself better, communicate better by managing my emotions effectively and being more authentic by allowing all those things to come out and being able to talk about it. So
Mhm.
that's really important. Man, I wish we had more time, but I know you need to
All right.
run, and it
I
was great
do.
talking with you, Gloria.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you very
we'll
much.
talk again
Enjoyed it.
soon. Thank you for tuning in to When God Intervenes. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more families in need of hope and healing. For more resources and support, visit our website at thefamilyrecoverycoach.com. Until next time, stay strong and keep the faith.